He's a man of tremendous talent and tremendous experience. I watched and read a lot over the last 2 days. He is highly respected by everybody in the military.
I'd just like to say what a privilege it is to be able to continue serving our nation. I'm grateful to you for that opportunity, and I look forward to joining the national security team and doing everything I can to advance and protect the interests of the American people. Thank you very much, sir.
You're going to do a great job.
That Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster is taking over as National Security Advisor
hold on, just stop.
In the wake of a scandal that cost Michael Flynn the top job.
Mike Barnacle has something to say here. 3 words that I tweeted out yesterday.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesus.
Well, the president introducing him yesterday in Florida after interviewing 4 top candidates.
I literally tweeted that. I said,
it's unanimous.
You, Jesus.
I haven't seen
literally.
Any critique.
I'm not being dramatic here.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Jesus.
Well, it's stability, intellect, everything you need.
Oh my God.
Good morning, everyone.
And don't look now, Willie, but I mean, with all the chaos that's been going on the past month, we actually have a good, really top-notch national security team, top to bottom. Everybody was always saying, oh, if not for Flynn, Mattis and Tillerson, and now McMaster,
Tillerson's having trouble getting
Pompeo.
If we can find Tillerson.
Yeah, well, he's getting the short end of the stick. We'll talk about that.
So the question is, you have all these strong, respected guys, and the question is, will their voices be heard above Donald Trump's voice? That's still the question that's out there. Will their thoughts and their ideas
The answer is so yes. I mean, I've never seen, I mean, especially since you have so many alpha males, leaders, generals. These are people who they're not going to say, oh, okay, we'll go get the oil because you told us to.
Well, I mean,
they're not doing it.
And also, I mean, what we have seen as far as foreign policy goes, sometimes it takes a circuitous route.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump, when it comes to foreign policy, his first idea for SecDef was an awful idea. We ended up with Mattis. His first idea, just his gut instinct for Secretary of State, awful. His gut instinct for Department of Homeland Security, awful. But he didn't go with that. Mm-hmm. He waited. He sifted through everything, and we actually, again, we end up, of course, we had to get rid of Flynn first, but it is pretty remarkable.
We're also trying to figure out the president, and as you look at this choice, just like the choice of Mattis and Kelly, these are people Hillary Clinton could have picked. These are people who've received wide acclaim across the spectrum. And trying to figure out the president, ask people who think the president is good for nothing, horrible, bad judgment. These picks represent extraordinarily good consensus, bipartisan judgment.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Just the root strength of McMaster, I would think, in the book Dereliction of Duty, which began as a PhD thesis.
Right.
It's the difference between physical courage and moral courage among field commanders, all the way up to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You speak to them. You speak back when you think something has gone awry.
And also with us, along with Barnacle and Mark Halperin, is columnist and associate editor for the Washington Post, David Ignatius.
David Ignatius, why don't you chime in here at us being shocked and stunned, but not deeply saddened, that we turn around after a month of chaos and actually have a national security team we wouldn't mind sending across the world. That's an understatement.
General McMaster is the real deal. He is a warrior intellectual. He is someone who has made his name through his career speaking truth to power. This is a man who almost didn't get promoted to brigadier general. He was passed over twice because he was his own person. He spoke out. He wouldn't play the promotion games. I first met General McMaster in Iraq when he was really, as much as anybody, the shaper of the idea that we could push back, contain the violence. He was up in a place called Tal Afar, a city really suffering under the burden of war, and he figured, I got to get my soldiers out of the center, out of the bases that they were in, and into the community, reduce the levels of violence. That became Dave Petraeus's big idea in the surge. H.R. McMaster was a key person for Petraeus and helping him think through the ideas. I then saw him in Afghanistan, where he had the insight that the problem in Afghanistan was it was a corrupt, broken society. Unless you fix the corruption, you couldn't fix the place. It's a terrific choice. When John McCain, your biggest critic, says you've made an outstanding choice, President Trump, that's a good sign that this is an important.
For
He
sure.
has too little experience in national security policy, but he's a smart man and he'll learn.
The harshest critics of Trump were actually some of those praising him the most yesterday for this election. And what's so interesting is you have a cabinet with generals that actually are acting as a moderating influence on a commander-in-chief because they have been in the middle of the most hellacious battles over the past 12, 13, 14 years. And they understand there's nothing glorious about war, and that the United States power has extraordinary limits, that soft power actually often, as we found out in Anbar province, soft power actually does more than hard power a lot of times. That's really important. When you start looking around the generals around Donald Trump, I love what somebody said about General Mattis. He thought he was getting Patton. He ended up with George Marshall.
No, McMaster's selection as National Security Advisor drew widespread praise, as we've said, across Washington, including from many top Democrats. So his book, as you mentioned, Mike, it's called Dereliction of Duty, and it looked at the Joint Chiefs of Staff during the war in Vietnam and how they fed information to politicians. That book has shot up to #1 on Amazon. The New York Times reports that he also criticized the way President George W. Bush's administration went to war in Iraq. Quote, as a commander, he was credited with demonstrating how a counterinsurgency strategy could defeat militants in Iraq, demonstrating the promise of an approach that General David Petraeus adopted to shift momentum in a war the United States was on the verge of losing. Before that, he earned a Silver Star as a tank commander in the Persian Gulf when his outnumbered armored company destroyed an Iraqi formation. Senator Tom Cotton was reportedly central to Trump picking McMaster. The senator once served under the general and suggested him to the White House. Politico reports that McMaster wasn't on the radar until the senator reached out to Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner, and Reince Priebus. Senator Cotton will join us live on Morning Joe ahead in our 8 o'clock
So listen
hour.
to this Tom Cotton story. I think it's remarkable how much respect he had for General McMaster. When McMaster got passed over the first time, he said, the hell with this. If this is what the Army does to their best, I'm getting out. It's how much respect Tom Cotton had. And it's hard, Mark, to find somebody that worked closely with General McMaster that didn't feel the same way.
Widespread support. You know, getting John McCain enthusiastic is obviously great for any administration since he can raise a lot of ruckus. Tom Cotton has quickly become, you know, freshman senator, one of the most influential voices in national security in the Republican Party because of his resume, and he cares a lot about these.
And by the way, a hawk on Russia. Yep. We always have to underline those hawks on Russia. He is a huge hawk on Russia.
And you now have an opportunity for this national security team to assert itself, not just in terms of how they deal with the president and the vice president, but what do they want to get done? Are they going to be reactive and deal simply with things that come in that are crises? Or do they now have a vision? Some national security advisors simply manage the process. Others, like Kissinger most prominently, are actually strategists and tacticians and think big picture. We don't know what he'll do on that, or is he simply going to manage the office? But there's an opportunity now for this team of people who have respect for each other. And again, Flynn had a lot of problems, one of which was a growing unease amongst the other members of the national security team. Every indication is the rest of the team now will welcome this choice and have an opportunity to really build something.
So here's some more of the reaction to McMaster's appointment. Strong pretty much across the board. The Weekly Standard's Bill Kristol wrote, I say this honestly and non-snarkily. I can't imagine anyone better prepared for the challenges of being Trump's NSA than H.R. McMaster. Former U.S. Ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul
Again,
said,
all harsh critics of Donald Trump for a long time.
McFaul said, H.R. is a giant upgrade. I've never felt better about Trump administration regarding national security.
And he has been on TV being critical of Donald Trump, along with Bill Kristol.
The relief is palpable.
Yeah.
Just a huge, huge collective sigh of relief, I think, among establishment circles.
And I ask again, you know, I'd love to ask Ambassador McFaul, what does it say to you about Donald Trump that he did this? Doesn't mean if you don't like him, you forgive the other stuff he's done that you don't like, but what does it say that he made this judgment that's been so universally praised on such an important decision?
You know, David used the term warrior intellect. The warrior part, obviously, he has. Served in the Gulf War, served in Iraq and Afghanistan. The intellect part is he's thought deeply about all the wars the United States has been in. The entire book, Dereliction of Duty, is about Vietnam. He was critical of the Iraq War. He thought about the counterinsurgency strategy. He's willing to come out and say publicly what the military is doing wrong, not just to defend what it did.
Right, and we also had a man who served in the Clinton administration, seen as a progressive on foreign policy issues, a foreign policy analyst. Strobe Talbot said McMaster has a stellar reputation with Tillerson, Mattis, and superb intel community. With POTUS's support, he can help get back on track. And you're talking about John McCain?
And Senator John McCain, he wrote, McMaster is outstanding choice, man of genuine intellect, character, and ability. George W. Bush advisor Fran Towson, a great patriot and a soldier. Republican Trump critic Elliot Cohen calls McMaster an inspiring leader, solid historian, honorable soldier, and thoughtful strategist. And how about Democratic Congressman Jim Himes, who sits on the Intel Committee? He wrote, brilliant strategic mind, not afraid to speak truth to anyone.
All
so coming
clear
from
thinkers.
both sides of the aisle, critics and supporters of Donald Trump.
You know,
Yeah, for sure.
we tend in this culture of ours to put people in boxes. You know, oh, he's a member of the military. Okay, we'll put him in this box. But McMaster, like several other high-ranking officers in both the Marine Corps and the Army especially, have quite an intellectual approach to international policy, foreign policy, and their own grasp of warfare, which is their business. A couple of years ago, McMaster gave a speech at Georgetown on Veterans Day about the warrior ethos. And it's really something to read it. He has clearly thought a lot about this stuff, and it's, again, a palpable sense of relief here.
David Ignatius, speak to what type of foreign policy team you see there with McMaster, Mattis, Tillerson, Pompeo, and Kelly, of course, running Homeland Security.
It's a strong team. Obviously, it's heavily weighted toward military figures. Each of these people has the kind of strength, the personality, strength of character to push back against this president or any person that they would question. I think those are all really positive things. General Kelly, who I was with last weekend, I think is similarly a person who's just not going to, lie down for things he thinks are wrong. It's a team that's weak on.
Following up, David, on what Mark Halperin had said, what does this require us? Does this require us to take a look at Trump, at least in his elections and foreign policy? Again, all of us, I'm not talking about you, but certainly all of us around the table have been harshly critical of him over the past month. What does this say, and does this require us to reassess that at least on foreign policy issues, he selects people that have said no to their bosses?
Joe, my answer would be that this has shown me again that Donald Trump wants to be a successful president. He could have made choices that would have made Steve Bannon happier, but he chose the person who rallies the country around the administration. We have a world out there that's so anxious about American policy. These choices are important. So I think he wants to be successful. The biggest question Donald Trump faces is not about anybody he chooses for his administration. It's about himself. It's about how he uses his opportunities to communicate with the country and the world to best advantage. And that's really my question. I admire this choice of McMaster and many of the others. But what has the president learned about how he uses the tools, especially Twitter? And that's something I think we should all continue to pay attention to. Not get on his case, but if they're disruptive to his own team, and we see that the team has to go out and put out fires and reassure people, that's a waste of their good energy.
So explain Europe. What has been going on in Europe over the past several days, where you have Donald Trump saying certain things causing great unease, and then you have all of our foreign policy team, including Mike Pence, going out seeming to contradict the president while trying to calm the waters there. But how is Europe taking all of this?
I was in Munich at the Munich Security Conference, a sort of Davos for foreign and defense policy, and American officials were kind of the reassurance brigade. They were sent out to tell people nothing's changed, we still support NATO, we still support the European Union. The only problem is they were making those statements because they were trying to rebut statements that have been made by President Trump, who made people anxious. That's the core problem. To close with one thought, the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, said to this conference in Munich, ladies and gentlemen, we have entered the post-West world. In other words, American institutions, American networks of alliances really are the past. He's playing off of the statements that Trump had made. And, you know, while I don't think people in the audience wanted to believe it, there is a sense that we've entered a different era. And that era is going to be shaped from now on by Trump. He's got a good team, but he's going to have to lead it.
Yeah, and the team, the inner circle, is going to have to interact with respect to that team.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.